Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. I am very excited for today's video because I'm going to be sharing with you what I read in the month of May. I cannot believe it is almost June. May was such a great month, and I read a little bit above my average. I love watching May wrap-ups or just monthly wrap-ups in general because I love seeing what books people read and their thoughts on them, and just seeing an overview of like your reading journey throughout the year and kind of reflecting on what you thought of your books this month. I read 7 books this month, which is a little bit above my average. I usually read about 4 books a month. Because I've been out of school, I feel like I've been dedicating more time to reading, which is always so great. I also got a haircut today. I haven't had it this short in like forever, but it is so good for my head and my neck, and I just think it looks cute. So please comment down below what was your favorite read that you read in May and why. I love hearing why people love books and figuring out new books and different tastes and genres. I'm actually very proud of myself because all the books I read this month were off my physical TBR, so I made quite a dent in my physical TBR. I don't have as many books as like someone who has income and can go to the bookstore a lot. I personally do not go to the bookstore a lot just because there isn't a lot around me. I'm actually very happy that I finally got to a lot of the books on my shelves that have been sitting on my shelf for months, and so let me talk about that. The first book I read this month was actually a book I got on my birthday last year, so it's literally been almost a full year since I've had this book, and that is Not If I See You First by Eric Lindstrom. I saw this around like disability book talk community, but I've had this on my list for about, I want to say 2 years, and on my birthday last year they had this on the 50% off table at Barnes & Noble, and I only go to Barnes on my birthday, and I've been wanting to check this out because it has disability representation and that is so important to me, so I want to build my own little disability representation shelf on my bookshelf. I enjoyed this a lot more than I thought I would. Not that I didn't think I would enjoy it, because I did want to read it. This was just such a great coming of age novel. I definitely thought at the beginning I was going to rate it like 2 stars just because of the language. Since it was written in 2015, a lot of like the slang in here transported me back to my middle school days, which was kind of like awful. The character in here, her name is Parker, and she calls a lot of her classmates noobs for not understanding her. Other than that, I really enjoyed this book. It is a coming of age story about a girl named Parker who's a high school senior, and she is blind from an accident that killed her mother, and she recently has lost her father. So her aunt and her cousins come to live with her. Parker has to deal with the change of not only losing her father, but this person in her life who they used to be best friends. He's kind of like her worst mistake. This book is not a romance, and the way the back of it makes it seem is marketed as like a romance, it is not. There is very little romance in here. It focuses more on Parker's grief, disability, and there's a great representation of like friendship and trust and healing in this book. Loved seeing Parker's journey and like how she dealt with her emotions, and it just felt very raw and real, and I really connected with a lot of the characters. I also like how the cover includes Braille. I think it's awesome that a cover has Braille on it and is accessible like this, so it just makes me more intrigued to learn or be more equipped with reading Braille. I rated this a 3.75 stars. I wouldn't reread it, but I'm glad I did, and I definitely recommend it. I read Volume 1 of Fullmetal Alchemist. Now, if you're an anime fan, Fullmetal Alchemist is one of the most popular and well-known animes of all time. Watched it in 2021 and absolutely fell in love with it. This story follows 2 brothers who, in an attempt to resurrect their mother from the dead, they try to perform human transmutation. They're trying to find a way to get their bodies back, because after they performed human transmutation as a way to resurrect their mother from the dead, Alphonse lost his whole entire body, and Edward, in attempt to save Al's soul, lost his right arm and his left leg, I believe. And it has a lot of great disability discussion, but doesn't make the characters just about their disability. This series is as close as you can get to perfection in my mind. The characters, the story building, the foreshadowing, like a piece of media that is considered perfection in my mind is Fullmetal Alchemist. And seeing these characters in the manga again and being reunited with them just made me so incredibly happy. If you are looking to get into manga, I would highly recommend this series. I rate it 4 out of 5 stars. The next book I read is The Beautiful Struggle by Ta-Nehisi Coates. When I first started reading again, I wanted to read The Water Dancer by him for the longest time because I was in a big literary fiction phase. It's quite short. This basically follows Ta-Nehisi Coates and his relationship with his father and his upbringing, and how he came to find his passion of storytelling and writing, and it focuses on family dynamics and emotional and physical abuse. So please check content warnings before you read this because it can get very graphic at times. But I am very glad I read this. There is a lengthier version of this, but this version is adapted for young adults. What's really cool about this is not only does he mention places he grew up in, it includes a family tree of his family, and it also includes a map of all the places he mentions, which I think is super cool. I don't rate memoir typically, so I'm not giving a rating for this, but I really did enjoy it. Next book I read was Fountains of Silence by Ruta Sepetys. This was one of my first books I bought when getting back into reading. If you are looking to get into historical fiction, Ruta Sepetys' writing is a great place to start. She is a historical fiction author that writes about history that isn't frequently talked about, and although a lot of her books center on like World War II, she talks about parts of World War II that aren't well known. And this follows Spain under the dictatorship of Francisco. It follows Daniel, who is a young aspiring photographer from Texas, and his family as like they strike up an oil deal in the way of Spain. The one thing I really liked about this was not only are the chapters very short, even though it's 500 pages, it just feels very fast-paced because the chapters are like only 1 to 2 pages, but it is definitely a character study book. So if you are not into character study books, like there's no plot. Basically it's like an overview and a reflection of history and what it was like for the people of Spain under the dictatorship, and seeing it from an American perspective. I just love Ruta Sepetys' writing so much. Like, it transports me. This is an outstanding book. I didn't even notice when I bought it long ago, but this is an art copy, which is so cool. I rated this a 4.25 because the ending ended quite abruptly, but I understand why it ended that way. Throughout certain parts of the chapters, she includes like archives during the real time period to kind of connect what was happening. Even though it's like a fictionalized version, like characters wise, it's real events. I definitely recommend this book. It probably was my favorite book I read this month, and I don't know, I just love Ruta Sepetys' writing so much. I was in a graphic novel mood this month, and I'm usually not in a graphic novel mood. However, I also got this for my birthday last year. Can you see a theme here? This is Speak by Laurie Halse Anderson, the graphic novel version. Speak is literally a modern classic and one of the first books that I read when I got back into reading and truly loved. I love the novel version, but I love the graphic novel version. I just think it took the story and the emotions and the character and just like the horror of what this story represents into such an artistic and emotional way. The art in here is absolutely stunning and fits with the tone of the story so well. You don't know what Speak is about. It is basically about the story and the emotional impact of a young girl in her freshman year of high school who was raped by an upperclassman. I think this version is where it really shines. It makes me feel more connected to the impact of the story. I don't know if you can see that, but you know, it kind of reminds me of a little bit of like a Tokyo Ghoul art style. That one right there. That one is really cool. I think if you have not been reading consistently for a while and you just need something more fast-paced, I think this is such a great place to start. Also, if you're looking to read banned books, Speak is one of the most banned books in the country. So there you go. Then I read Seton Girls by Charlene Thomas. I got this arc from Penguin Teen before it came out. It came out in November, and I hardly hear anyone talk about it. I rated this at 3.75 stars. I was debating on whether I should rate it a 4 or 3.75. I don't know. Part of me is like Riverdale with the friendship aspect of Pretty Little Liars with the aesthetic aspect of One Tree Hill. That is like the best combination I can describe this book. Basically follows this high school and their football team and how this football team for 13 years has been undefeated and is like very prolific and important in the town, and like a lot of news crews and just people in general put these football players on a pedestal, and there's like power imbalances. Not only does it have a very strong emphasis on friendship, we have this girl named Britt who is part of like this very popular girl group. Like her and her friends are like the friend group everyone wants to be, and like they're so close and so protective of each other. And the back of this book says Britt is a bomb, and maybe you meet her and survive it, and it's a miracle that you'll talk about forever with anyone who will listen. Maybe that's what happens and it feels like magic, or maybe the bomb goes off and she destroys you. Britt is one of my favorite characters I've ever read about. This goes back in like past and present timeline of like the football players when they're doing like their underground secrets to like how they keep winning, and like the, I guess, the corruption within the system of the school. Then to present time of 2019 to this girl named Allie who is part of like the school newspaper, and she is in charge of writing like a Seton story of the quarterback. Light comes out to certain things that expose the darkness of what the Seton football team actually is and their purpose. If you are looking for a YA contemporary with darker themes but also a great emphasis on friendship, I would definitely recommend, but please check content warnings before you read this. Last book I read this month, I actually finished it last night. It's a novella, and I feel weird about writing novellas because it was so short. It was like only 136 pages, but oh my god, it was so good, but also so sad. This is Even Though I Knew the End by Cida L. Polk. I think they've also written The Midnight Bargain and one other book that is kind of popular. This is like a mystery noir set in the 1940s in, where is this set in? I totally forgot. Oh my god, where is this set in? It's set in Chicago. Okay, yeah. I think it's set in Chicago. I could be so wrong. If I'm wrong, I'll put it here. We follow Helen, who is basically like a mystery detective, but she is trying to find a way to connect back to her soul. So there's a little bit of a magical aspect in this. Her job in the city is to help find out what is going on with all the murders going on in the town recently, and how the souls that she can normally feel that are connected to people after death aren't being felt. And so she takes up this offer by like a prolific demon, and the demon and her strike up a deal where she helps Marlowe get the person who is doing the murders. Marlowe will give how win back her soul so she can live a long life and go to heaven. But it features such a sweet love story between her and Edith, and oh my god, I would literally die for them. Like, forbidden lesbian love, literally my favorite. So if you like angels and demons and crime and mystery with lesbians, I highly recommend you read this. Not only just in general, but also Pride Month is coming up, and I would highly recommend everyone to diversify your bookshelves. But I really enjoyed this. It flew by so fast for me. I rated this a 3 star. Not because it was bad, but just because it's a novella, so it's very short. Those were all the books that I read in May. Thank you for watching this video. I love talking about books and just sharing what I read this month. I think it's so fun. Comment down below what book you read this month that's your favorite or least favorite, or any recommendations you have for me. I will link my Goodreads down below if any of you want to be Goodreads friends or Storygraph friends, which is an alternative to Goodreads, because I love updating what I'm reading and seeing what other people are reading. I hope everyone has an amazing day, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!